Welcome, everybody. This is Lance and Amanda. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, good morning.
We're going to be giving you an overview of how BlueSky produces and manages virtual conference programs. BlueSky has been around since 2002. We have a tremendous amount of expertise and experience in this arena of virtual events. We started off the year at about 50 personnel. We're now up to 70 or 75 and continuing to grow fast. That a lot of that is in response to everything that's happened with COVID-19 and all these virtual meetings coming online. We serve over 300 associations, and we're headquartered in San Diego, California. We're a proud US owned. All of our support staff is in the US, and there's a lovely picture of them outside of our San Diego headquarters. We are a proven solution, and there are three parts to our business. The first is the Path LMS of foundational platform, and we'll be talking about that a bit later and how really all virtual events are e-learning events at their core. But then we also do a ton of managed webinars, virtual events, and virtual conferences. And the third part of our business is learning strategy and development. We'll take a look at how important this is with the design of your virtual event site and the user experience in it. So our LS&D folks have a lot to do with our virtual events, but they also help our association and nonprofit clients take face-to-face trainings online, do complete instructional design and conversion of face-to-face trainings into interactive, engaging online trainings. We are an award-winning platform. And I would say, especially, I think the Capterra reviews there really capture it. Overall, the platform and the robustness of the platform, the ease of use, and ease of use both for learners, attendees, but also for presenters and your staff that is having to work with the program, do reporting, do configuration. There's no programming involved, and it's a very modern looking mobile responsive interface that allows you to get what you need to get done quickly and efficiently. So now let's take a look at a real live example. The Arkansas Bar Association, that is one of the many associations that needed to take its annual meeting and put it online. And Amanda, this is your client. Tell us a bit about Arkansas Bar.
Sure. Exactly what you just referenced, Lance. They were needing to move everything exclusively online, and they had never done this before. And so they really needed not just a vendor, but more of a consultative approach to the experience, where we were assisting them, figuring out really what that event was going to look like in a completely new space. So as you can see here from the example, it's a multi-day program. They had social events intertwined throughout the experience. And it was really overall, I think, a wonderful experience for their attendees. In fact, multiple of their attendees reached out and said it was the best annual meeting they had attended in a very long time.
Wow.
Which is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I so hear you, Amanda, about the consultative approach. I literally had someone email me this week saying, I feel, this was an association executive, I feel like I am building the airplane while we're flying it. And so
that was said multiple times in our conversations.
Right. So there's a lot of consultation, a lot of people going through this the first time. And I think that's an area in which we really shine. We take the time to help people and consult with people and figure out the right way to do a virtual conference that meets their objectives. So here we are, ArcBar. By the way, if you want to visit this site, pathlms.com/ArcBar, and you'll be at this page. This is the home page. And with the Path system, the homepage is really a web page in which you can put whatever content, branding, text, images, links you need. You'll notice that our design team worked with ArcBar and did a really nice flow of their brand and their colors into the site. Nice video here to get everybody excited about the meeting. And then we have the chairs, the keynote speakers, and of course, all of their sponsors. We'll be looking at their sponsor area, the trade show booth in just a moment. But this is what they chose to put on the home page. Then when you click to enter the virtual conference, the first thing that you see is the days of the conference. That's good, right in front of you. And then links to go to the exhibit hall, a brochure, tech support, and to visit the sponsors, and of course to see the chairs and keynote speakers. And you know, even this, Amanda, I would just comment that when people see this, one of the things that I get as a response is, oh, this is so easy. This is so nicely laid out. There's not a lot of opportunity for the attendee to get lost. And that is the point.
Yes.
We want the attendees to be able to focus on the content, not picking and pecking around your user interface to figure out where to go next, and not dealing with different pop-ups as they're kind of moved between different systems in order to serve up the content of the conference. So let's take a look actually first at the exhibit hall, then we'll go into the content. There's a lot to talk about in here. And when we go into the exhibit hall, then we're asked to sign in. We sign in and the system puts us right at the place where we need to be. Another nice video for the exhibit hall, just getting people interested in that. And I know a lot of people's mind is, how do we make sure that exhibitors get their money's worth out of taking part in a virtual conference? We know how to do that at the physical conference. That's why we have lunch down on the trade show floor in order to bring everybody down there. But how do we do that when it's online? So Amanda, what did ArcBar do to make that work?
Sure, this is a really big concern, and I will say it's tough. This is a different, nuanced experience for the attendees, and so what they really wanted was a reason to come, and certainly the vendor information, the sponsor information is really important, but that doesn't always drive people into that experience. Let's face it, a lot of times when we're at in-person conferences, we're drawn in by the tchotchkes, the branded tchotchkes and gift cards, right? Or I am buying something and I know I'm buying something and I'm seeking this one or these two vendors out. And so that was the difficulty in sort of moving this, or a big concern they had in moving this online. So what they did is they decided to use the tools that are natively within Path LMS, which we're going to talk a little bit about. Obviously, we're showing you that here. And they utilized those tracking tools to move the learner through the exhibit hall experience, which I'll really call this more of an exhibit resource center. And what you're doing as a learner is you're entering in and you're seeing a presentation from an exhibitor. Maybe it's like this. This is a great example. This is a recording from an exhibitor saying, hi, I'm Amanda from BlueSky eLearn, and here's what we have to offer you. And it feels as if I'm standing in front of BXS Insurance and talking to these two individuals. So you have ways that you can really make it look and feel as if I'm in front of you. This is a presentation. The learners can come play it. What happens here is they actually utilized a bingo card, right? We have, for some of our conferences in person, we have the bingo cards, and you walk around and an attendee gets the signature from the different exhibitors. And then they turn that in at the end of the experience if it's completed for a gift card. They did this and just replicated this online. So as the learners went through all of the presentations, there were small gift cards at the vendor level, but there was also a very large gift card, a couple $100, if the learner went in and completed all of the videos. Again, I referenced the tools that are directly or natively, within Path. As the attendees viewed the presentations, they were completed, and at the end of that experience, there was a certificate that was set up. ArcBar staff was able to go in, and this is really ease of use for the staff. They were able to go in and run some reports on the attendee activity to get vendor lists, so attendees who engaged with the vendors, as well as who completed all of it. And then they were able to do all of their raffles.
Nice.
So I think that's great, adds a little bit of gamification in there into the experience, but you also note for everyone here, you have to make dedicated time, and don't just give them 15 minutes. Give them a allotted amount of time, just as you would in person, to really encourage them to get over there, because there is a change. They're used to going in person and they're going online now. And so there's a little bit of anxiety or anxiousness to get in that next session. So give them time and a reason.
And you know, they did that through slots in the agenda, where they just didn't do any programming, and they just said, "Hey, go to the exhibit hall during this time." Solid 30-minute time to just go check it out. Also, one other thing that we didn't show in that particular exhibit booth, we had the video, we had the resources, and the descriptions of the contacts, but there can also be a live chat right in that area. And for some of our clients, they put live chat into each of the booths, and then they have a particular time each day where people are where personnel is available in the chat room to answer people's questions. So that's another way to just make it interactive and collaborative as an experience.
Lance, one other thing as well is that some of our clients are utilizing Zoom links or meeting links, and we can just link those directly to the LMS. And then there's a person, just like if Lance and I were here in this room and someone came into this Zoom room, we could have a one-on-one conversation about our product or service. And that's really valuable. And that's just your vendors sending in a link so that the learners can come in and engage.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, and when you're in there, they can actually do a screen share and show their product and talk about a promotion that they're having during the conference. All of that makes great sense. Just to show you the other pieces of the conference before we go into sort of the meat of the content for each day, we saw the exhibit hall. There is also the ability to go to another kind of special page just for the sponsors, having a description of them and in the levels of their support. That's important. You'll notice there's navigation at the top. So again, the attendees always know where they are. If attendees need technical support, they can click here and they can contact our team, because we provide all the first level technical support for attendees and presenters. And they can do that during conference hours via a phone or email. And then there's also a nice page for the meeting chairs and the keynote speakers. I thought this was very nicely done. And again, very simple to get to. You could have contact information here as well, whatever you want to put on that page. So now let's take a look at a day in the show and how the agenda is laid out. This is, they had a nice idea to start the day with a yoga, stretching. Love that. Just a live stream, getting everybody moving and going. And at the end of the day, they had another, I assume these were probably Zoom rooms with fun and games, young lawyers section, different things each day. And then during the day, a really solid set of content that was produced, as we'll see, with a mix of formats. We'll talk about how these were actually presented, but basically however it best matched that content is how they presented it. And to get into any of those sessions, first, when a attendee would come into the virtual conference, they select what sessions they want to attend, and then they click to get into that session. Now, this conference is already over, so the session actual media content isn't in there. So I'm going to flip over to my little sandbox site to show you when you would click into a session, what you would see. So here is a path session room. And kind of consider this area to be a canvas onto which you can put a variety of different kinds of multimedia content. And I'm going to show you a bunch of examples of that in a moment. It can be live streaming. It can be a pre-recorded, what we call mock live. That mock live at the end can have a live Q&A session. And it can also be, and this is one thing that ArcBar did, it can be like a Zoom webinar that is framed and streamed through our content delivery network. Now, you note that when I say it's streamed through our content delivery network, what that means is that the attendees are not having to go to a Zoom room. They're not having to click on a link. They're not having to bring up another pop-up. They are always in this room. It's just that for those particular sessions, the presenter was comfortable using Zoom. So they went into Zoom, clicked through their slides. We captured that whole thing and stream it through the room. On the right-hand side, we have our collaboration widgets. The organizers of the virtual conference can send out announcements. That's important. There can also be open chat, just person-to-person chat, and each of these can be turned on or off depending on your requirements. And then there is an area where you can have Q&A, which is questions that will go specifically to the presenters. You can also have polls, and these polls can be if you are involved with CME or CLE, where you need to make sure that people are there actually physically interacting with the conference. Then it can be just something that people are clicking on every 30 minutes to just acknowledge that they're there. Or it can be a poll that you do at the beginning, middle, or end of the session. And these can change during the session as well, depending on the content and what kind of interaction you want. Underneath the frame, the multimedia frame, we have a description of the session. It can be text and links and images, and also any resources that go along with it. So all in one place, super easy for the attendee, no way to get lost, no downloads, no plugins. There's a standard HTML5 page that views great on desktops and tablets and on phones. So what are some examples of what can go into this content area? Let's take a look. So here's an example of where we are with our broadcasting infrastructure. We are taking a presenter and that presenter's slides, and we're putting them onto a custom background. So in this case, the client chose a black background. We have some custom titling here for the presenter, and what you call the bottom third. We have, in this case, just the logo of the organization. But imagine if you had a major sponsor for a session, you could put their logo into some area of the bottom third. Here's another example. And by the way, this could be in the same session. So because we are actually producing this, video mixing this, we can move between formats during a single session or show. And here we have a couple presenters who are talking and sharing their slides. Another view where we have three presenters talking back and forth. They seem to be having a good time. And all six of the panel coming together to discuss some elements. And they can also be taking the input. In this case, we're using Slido. They can be taking the input to their questions as people are responding, and then live on the screen be showing the results of that. I just think this is very powerful. We have 288 votes here, and these can be not only just yes or no, but other kinds of polls and even open-ended questions where people are putting in certain kinds of answers for the text. So that is a brief overview of what the virtual conference looks like and how the sessions can be produced and broadcast. Now, in some cases, you might want to use a webinar with all the attendees in the webinar instead of those live streaming options that I just showed. And, you know, Amanda, what generally I see as sort of the decision point for whether or not the session should be in a managed webinar kind of interface like this. And in this case, we're showing you Adobe Connect because we have an enterprise infrastructure for Adobe Connect. But really, it's about how important engagement is between the attendees during the sessions. For some organizations, and you know who you are, especially where you have more senior people coming to the conference, it's not so much oriented towards a lecture kind of presentation format. A lot of the value, a lot of the reason that people come to the conference is that schmooze time, you know, to share their ideas, to make networking connections. So just a couple other comments. One is the essential aspect of integration and partnerships in doing these virtual conferences. One of the things that you really want to try to stay away from, if at all possible, is having to have people have a separate username and password in order to get into the conference. That can be accomplished through a technology called single sign-on, and we have integrated with virtually all of the top association management databases in order to provide single sign-on between your member database and perhaps where you have the conference sold. You can have the conference sold on that platform or on our platform, but very importantly, the single sign-on so that people don't have to have a separate username and password. They just use what they already know from logging into your organization's website. And then on the other hand, you might want to write back some information to the member database. For example, what sessions people attended, or if there are certificates and CE credits associated with the conference, then you probably want to write those back as well, rather than having to deal with imports and exports. And that is another really nice part of the integration that we provide with most of these member databases. So the power of partnership. The second is the power of branding and design. I hope you noticed with the art bar example how cleanly laid out it was and how it mapped to their branding in such a nice way. So we have a design team that works with you. We don't just show you, here is how you do it, just go do it all on your own. We hold your hand and don't let go. That's what I tell people. So we're with you every step of the way, and that kind of starts with the branding, the design, the user experience that you want for your virtual conference. And we show you lots of examples, and then our team works with you to execute a design that's really beautiful for your site. Here's another example of how that can be different for different organizations. And as Amanda mentioned, the power of support. This is huge. And I always ask people when they ask us about, when I get grilled, Amanda, about all the features and bits and bytes of our virtual conference platform, at the end, sometimes the whoever I'm talking to asks me, is there anything that I didn't ask about? And I would say really 100% of the time, my answer is, you didn't ask me enough about support. Because support is so huge, from your training through the production help that you get, through the support that we provide for your attendees, through and into client success, so that you can see, well, so that you're forward thinking. There's, you have such an opportunity to take the content from a virtual conference and create an e-learning environment and platform for that. And we are keeping that in mind and asking you about that and helping you do that in whatever way is appropriate for you. Also, accessibility. This is a particular focus of mine. I think that people who have visual disabilities or hearing disabilities should be able to access your virtual conference and take part in that. with either mouse alternatives, keyboard alternatives. We have paid close attention to this and have implemented our system in a way that meets Section 508 standards and also WCAG standards. So lastly, the power of e-learning. Everything that we just showed you is actually implemented on the Path LMS platform. So after the show, if you want to take those components and make them into courses or learning paths, or just have the archives available for 6 months or a year, we have the platform that can help you do that. It's a very robust, very state-of-the-art platform. We just saw a little tiny bit of it in this demo, but it's there to serve you. Well, Amanda, what questions do we have?
Yeah. So can you explain the difference between Path LMS and the virtual events platform, either webinar or webcast?
Yeah. So I'll start this and then you can finish it, Amanda. Okay. We were actually looking at the Path LMS platform, and I think that's really one of the keys here, is that it is all one platform. Because of the history of BlueSky eLearn, the company actually started with recordings of conferences and selling those CDs and DVDs. So we've been in virtual events since the very beginning. And the learning platform is totally integrated with our virtual events capabilities. So you can put into a course a webinar, or a webinar series can become a course, or those webinars can be webinars or live streams can be completely separate from courses, but still within the same environment. So all of those tools are what we're using. Those are the building blocks that we're using to put together your virtual conference.
Yeah, that's great. I would say the only thing I would add there is when you think about the learning management system, at least Path LMS, that's the mechanism where you are, it's sort of the hub, right? Where you are delivering the content, the learners are coming there, potentially even prior to delivery, possibly e-commerce and management of the account. And then you've got the delivery, the tracking, especially in the on-demand, where am I, what have I done, where do I need to come back to? And then lastly, either issuing those credits or just having that completion record, right? The whole experience is able to be done. And then what happens within is the virtual events complement that experience based on what you're wanting to deliver, what you're wanting to sell, what you're wanting your learners to engage with.
Nice. Perfect.
All right, let's see.
One more?
Yes. So can I manage my own programs and use your services for larger events like virtual conferences?
Very good question. So the Path Learning platform is self-service. We give you training, we give you the support from the beginning all the way through, and we show you how to utilize all the tools. But you get to go in and create courses and change media items and update descriptions, update pricing, all of that, get out detailed reports anytime you want, 24/7. That is just part of our platform. And that's actually, you know, Amanda, that's an important part of the conference features as well, because right up until when you launch, you may be tweaking some, I mean, I hate to say it, but you may be tweaking some of the information that's going in those booths. Different people being added or a description being tweaked. And you can go in there and do that. It's not like it has to be sent to our production team and then programmed in. It's nothing like that. So we do help you a lot with the setup, but it also is available to you to log in and make changes at any time.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I guess the only thing I would add there is in the programs, being those live programs, I think we talked a little bit, nuanced a little bit around the integrations we have with GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, Zoom Meeting, Zoom Webinar, and Adobe Connect, where you can actually self-service some of your virtual events as well as you grow and move along, but then lean on us for those more complex events. So you really can pick your direction, shall you say.
Nice. Well, thank you everybody for attending with us, and I hope this was useful. And please visit us at BlueSkyeLearn.com to learn more about our virtual conference programs. Take care.
Thank you so much.